To which the Gemara says, but 1 second, how it's not the same thing? That's chatzotzros, right? That's trumpets. Ultimately, again, this is a shofar. To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you. It's drich sakadait chamina. Since we learned Shava HaYovel Rosh Hashanah L'Tkiyas U'Lebrachas, well, that's very interesting. That Yovel is compared to Rosh Hashanah, both for Tkiyah, for the sounding of the shofar, as well as for Brachos. That ultimately, again, the same that on Rosh Hashanah, we say Malchias, Zichronos, and Shofaros. So too again on that's on Yom Kippur. So too again on Yovel, we would also recite that type of musaf. So says the Gemara, Disib mitzvahs Yovel, Disib mitzvahs Rosh Hashanah. I would have thought whoever is subject to the mitzvahs of Yovel is subject to the mitzvahs of Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, using that logic, Bahani Kohani, Hoil V'leslu mitzvahs Yovel, since Kohanim do not have the halachos of Yovel. I will say now, what does that mean? This nan, Kohanim Levim Mochrin the Olam, top of Dalid, V'goal in the Olam. Both say the halacha is that Kohanim and Levim have the ability to sell their property forever and can redeem it forever. The Rebbe say now, this is actually very interesting. What this means is as follows. If you look at, it's actually Rashi on Gimel Amud Beis, Rashi on 3b, Mochrin the Olam. Rashi says, Afilu b'shnas hayovel atzma imachru karka shalahem mechura. But this is an interesting halacha, which is normally on the Yovel year, you can't really sell property. So it's interesting what happens to the real estate market on the Yovel year. So you can't sell property during the Yovel year. But however, again, the exception to that rule ultimately is Kohanim. Kohanim can sell property, Kohanim can sell real estate, even during the Yovel year itself. Rashi says, "Afilu b'shnas Yovel atzma imachru karka shalahem mechura." If they sold property, it is sold. Vilu gabi Yisrael Tanya b'Gemara Parak Basra u'b'shnas Yovel lo yimkar v'machar eina mechura. V'amos chozim v'makanim t'nam mochrim li olam. So we'll say, so number one, Kohanim are permitted to sell real estate during Yovel. Not only that, v'goal in the olam. Rashi says, imachru sadeh goalin oso miyad. The Yisrael in a mutter legal pachus beishan. We'll say furthermore again, if a Kohen sells land, he is permitted to redeem it immediately, even though Yisrael is not permitted to do so. So the idea is, on a technical level, so to speak, Yovel doesn't apply to Kohanim. So I might have thought, since there's this connection between Yovel and Rosh Hashanah, whoever has the halachos of Yovel has the halachos of Rosh Hashanah. Kohanim, quote unquote, do not have the halachos of Yovel. Therefore, I would think that they are not subject to the halachos of Rosh Hashanah either. And therefore, what? Therefore, do not blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Do not have a chiyuv in Tekiyah shofar on Rosh Hashanah, top of Dalid. So the Gemara says, second line, Dalid Amud Aleph, Nehi delesnu b'hashmatas karka b'hashmatas ksafim. Even though it's true that Kohanim do not have the halachos of hashmatas karka, right? Shmitas karka and shmitas ksafim, b'shiluach avadim mia isnu. They do have the halachos ultimately of what? Of shiluach avadim. That if a Kohen does have an eved, he does set him free during the Yovel year. So even though the Kohen may not have certain halachos that apply during the quote-unquote Shemitah or Yovel, and that happens to be, the Gemara here is quoting the concept of Hashmatas Karka, Hashmatas Ksafim, is a din in Shemitah, right? Is a din in Shemitah, not a din in Yovel. Tosas points out that since in order for Shemitah to work properly, ultimately Yovel has to be intact. So therefore, again, we're kind of mixing and matching a little bit. But the idea is, even though a Kohen is not fully subject to the halachos of Yovel, since he has some of the halachos of Yovel, that's enough to put him in the parsha. And therefore, even if you want to make the relationship that only those who have an obligation in Yovel have an obligation in Rosh Hashanah, a Kohen is subject to some of the halachos of Yovel, and therefore halacha l'maisa will be subject to Tekiyah Shofar and Rosh Hashanah as well. Beautiful. Hakol chayav b'mikra Megillah, Kohanim Levim Yisraelim. Suppose say the Mishnah says everyone is obligated to read the Megillah. Kohanim Levim Yisraelim pshita. That's obvious. Lo tzvicha libata la'avodasam. So we'll say, what's the chiddush over here? The chiddush is for the Kohanim to teach us that even if the Kohen is involved in avoda, he still goes ahead and what? He negates the performance, or he stops the performance of his avoda in order to read the Megillah. Kid Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kohanim b'avodasam uleviim biduchanan V'yisava ma'amadan, mevatlin avodasam uboim lishma mikra megillah. Because we'll say this, the Mishnah teaches us that halacha l'maisa, whether a Kohen is doing the avoda, the Levi is singing the shira, the Yisrael is doing the ma'amados, they stop what they're doing and they come to go ahead and read the Megillah. So we'll say, so that's the Chiddush over here. I would have thought that maybe a Kohen ultimately who's involved in Avoda trumps Mikra Megillah. Kamash Mala, no, that even a Kohen in the middle of his Avoda stops in order to hear the Megillah. Hakol Chayavin Bezimun. I will say a very interesting halacha. Everybody is obligated in Zimun, in a Mezuman, Kohanim Levim Yisraelim. Pshita. To which the Gemara says, no, isn't that obvious? Lo tzricha deka'achli kachim. Rabbi say this is incredible. So I might have thought maybe not. The chiddush of Rabbi say is kohanim. Kohanim, let's say in this case, the kohanim are eating kachim. They're eating something sacrificial. Sagadei tchamino va'achlu osam asher kupar bahem. Supposed to say this is actually a fascinating idea. I might have thought that when a kohen eats something sacred or sacrificial, that's not called a normative achila. Why is that not called the normative achila? Because ultimately the pasuk says va'achlu osam asher kupar bahem. Those who atone for it eat from it. In other words, that the act of consumption of karbanos is in and of itself a chelek, a portion of the atonement. The eating itself is an act of atonement. So I might have thought only Jews could come up with eating as acts of atonement, right? So ultimately, again, I would have thought that perhaps, remember again, in order to be chayiv in Birkas Hamazon, you have to satisfy the criteria of what? V'achalta, v'savata, u'berachta. That's to be an achila. I might have thought the consumption of karbanos doesn't satisfy the achila criteria, because that's not called achila, but rather what is it called? It's called kapara. Kamashmalon v'achalta v'savata amrachmanda va'isnu. To which the Gemara says, no, even though the consumption of karbanos is indeed kapara, that doesn't take away from the fact that what? That it is also achila. So because it's achila, interestingly enough, kohanim would still make a mezuman if they are eating karbanos together. That's halacha number one. Now let's say it gets even more interesting. Hakol mitztarfim l'zimun, kohanim levim Yisraelim. Everyone can combine to form a mezuman. Kohanim levim Yisraelim. Okay, pshita, right? That's obvious. Lo tzricha de ka'achli kohanim truma o kachim v'zar ka'achal chulin. Both say, listen to this interesting case. What's the chiddush? The chiddush is, what happens if the kohanim are eating truma or kachim? They're eating truma or kachim, and the Yisrael is eating chulin. So three people eating together, but they're not eating the same foods. Not only are they not eating the same foods, but what? They not watch this. Sagdait chamina v'i boys hoil v'i boys are the meichel bahadei kohen lamatzi achel. So I might feel like this: the zar cannot eat of the truma or of the kachim that the kohen is eating. He cannot share, right? He cannot share the food of the kohen. So I thought that because of that, lo matzu achel kohen bahadi. I'm sorry. So ema lo litzdarif. So I might have thought that since what's a zimun? A zimun is where everybody's eating together, and again, what bonds them? What bonds them together is that technically speaking, they can all partake of one another's food. So I would say, so therefore again, halacha l'maisa, I would have thought, therefore what? In a case where you have non-kohanim eating together with a kohen, since the non-kohanim, the zarim, cannot eat of the kohen's food, therefore they cannot create a mezuman. Emel litzdarif. Kamash, listen to this. Nehid de zar bahadei kohen lamatzi achel, kohen bahadei zar matzi achel. To which the Gemara says, it's okay. As long as the sharing could go even in one direction, it's fine. So halacha l'maisa, it's true that the zar cannot eat of the food of the kohen, but what? But the kohen can eat of the food of the zar. Right? The kohen can eat of the food of the non-kohen. So because of that, they have the ability to go ahead and form a zimun. So I want to tell you, the Mishnah Berurah brings down an incredible halacha l'maisa application of this. What happens if three people are eating together? Two of them are eating fleishiks, one of them is eating milchiks. Right? They all eat together. Can they form a mezuman? And the answer is yes. Yes. Why? Because even though the guys who are eating fleishiks cannot share of the food of the guy who's eating milchiks, the guy who's eating milchiks has the ability to share the food of the guy who's eating fleishiks. Mishnah Berurah says this is all assuming that the guy who's eating milchiks is not eating hard cheese, right? If he's eating hard cheese, which mamish has the din that you have to wait between milchiks and fleishiks, but assuming he's not eating hard cheese, halacha l'maisa they could form mezumin. The Mishnah Berurah says, however, who should lead the mezumin? Who should lead the mezumin? The milchiks yid should lead the mezumin, right? Why? Because he's the one who has the ability to eat of all of the food of the people who is there. That mamish is gleaned from this halacha right here. Incredible. Hakol ma'arichin. We'll say everybody can make an erech vow. Hakol ma'arichin kohanim leviim yisraelim. All right, pshita. Obviously, everybody can make an erech vow. So Amar Rava lo nitzucha ela leben buchri. We'll say the statement is really only needed according to Ben Bukhri. What did Ben Bukhri say? Just not. Amar Yehuda Heyir Ben Bukhri biyavne. Ben Bukhri gave the following testimony in Yavne. Kol kohen sheshokel eno chote. We'll say it's actually really very interesting. Ben Bukhri said, any kohen who contributes to half shekel has not sinned. Okay, so the lashon is very important. Any kohen who has contributed the half shekel, he didn't commit naveira. It's not a bad thing. Look at Rashi. Eno chote. Rashi says, as we're going to see clearly, Ben Bukhri holds that a kohen does not contribute machzis hashakel. Right? That's what he holds. And we're going to see why. But he says, even though a kohen does not contribute machzis hashakel, if the kohen ends up contributing, he has not committed an aveira. Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, lo kain. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, Ben Bukhri, what are you talking about? Ella. Kol kohen she'eno shokel chote. No. It's not the pshat that if a kohen gives, he didn't commit an aveira, which essentially means what? That the kohen is pater from machzis hashakel. Whether Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says any kohen who did not contribute machzis hashakel has committed an aveira. You've done something wrong. Ella. So I say, so what's going on over here? Ella shekohanim darshan mikra zel yatzman. Rather, what ends up happening over here in this discussion of machzis hashakel is the kohen made a drasha for themselves. So we'll say people make drashas for themselves all of the time, right? Why? Because again, I'm such a I'm like the darshan, the mechadish, the posek hadar, and I saw in the pasuk that there's something that suits my needs. So apparently everybody does this in their own way. The Kohanim made the drasha. What's the drasha? This is actually quite a fascinating drasha. Kol minchas kohen kadol tia lo socha. So we'll say, so the pasuk says any mincha offered up by a kohen is totally consumed on the mizbeach. It shall not be eaten. It shall not be eaten. Now I will say, so again, so watch what the Kohanim said. They said, Hoyo v'omer ushte halechem v'lechem apanim shalanuhem. So the Kohanim said like this, if we contribute machzis hashekel, that means we put money into the communal coffers. Communal coffers are used to purchase the barley for the omer, the wheat for the shtei halechem, and the wheat for the lechem apanim. The problem is if we have a stake in that, then what? Then these items would not be permitted for consumption, but rather they would have to be totally burned. Therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, the Kohanim said, it's clear that what? We should not contribute matzis hashakel. This way, again, none of these items belong to us, and because they do not belong to us, they don't come from our money, therefore they need not be burned on the mizbeach. So we'll say here the drasha. The drasha is actually a pretty solid one. It's wrong, but it's pretty solid, right? So essentially, again, two parts to this. Number one, the Torah says any mincha of a kohen is burnt. Even though remember again, we learned minachos extensively. What happens with the mincha? All that's taken from a mincha is put on the mizbeach is what? Is the kmitza. That's all. The rest of it is consumed by the Kohanim. The exception to that rule, if a Kohen brings his own mincha, that mincha is totally burnt. The Kohanim understood that to mean any carbon that we have an ownership interest in is totally burned on the Mizbeach. If we contribute machzis hashekel, then we're going to have an ownership interest in everything, including things like the omer, shtei halechem, lechem apanim. If we have an ownership interest in it, then what? Then it has to be burnt on the Mizbeach. And yet Torah says these items have to be consumed, which clearly tells us that we should not give machzis hashekel. That was the logic of Ben Bukhri, and that's why Ben Bukhri said ultimately again, Kohanim don't give. If they give, they're not a chotei. Okay, Ula ben Buchri nami kevun lechatchila mechayev le'asuye ki maisi nami chotehu dekama ayel chulun azara. But ben Buchri, if you really are a purist and you really believe in this drasha, then if it's true that Kohanim are not obligated to go ahead and give machzis hashekel, then if they were to bring machzis hashekel, it would what? It would be like bringing chulin into the azara. It's unconsecrated money that does not belong to the Beis HaMikdash, so that's problematic. To which the Gemara says, no, it's not a problem. The Ma'asilei u'masra l'tzibor. Ultimately, again, in Ben Buchri's model, if a kohen wants to bring machzis hashekel, what does he do? He brings it to the temple coffers, and what he does is he's makni it to Klal Yisrael. This money is a gift to Klal Yisrael. Then it's put ultimately again in the temple coffer. So therefore, it's not considered to be like his machzis hashekel. He's giving it to Klal Yisrael. Sadait Chamina, I would have thought holy luksiv kav v'chol erkecha yeh b'shekel hakodesh. I would have thought like this. Since the pasuk says by Arachin, that what? Or any Arachin yeh b'shekel hakodesh should be in the form of the shekel. Called the isei b'shkalim isei b'Arachin. I might have thought the Torah is making a connection between Arachin and Shkalim. Whoever is obligated in shekel, or more specifically machzis hashekel, ultimately again is subject to the laws of Arachin. V'hani kohanim hov lesnu b'shkalim lesnu b'Arachin, and therefore kohanim who are not subject to the laws of machzis hashekel, as we just said according to Ben Buchri, should not be subject to the laws of Arachin. To which the Gemara says, Kamash Malan, that's not the case. Kamash, so the Gemara says, Kamash Malan, that's not the case. Only Abaye. So I say Kamash Malan, therefore the Mishnah tells us, Hakol Chayavin Be'erachin, right? What was the Lashon over here? Hakol Ma'arichin, Hakol Ma'arichin, Kohanim Leviim Yisraelim. That even according to Ben Buchri, Kohanim are not subject to the laws of Shkalim. Nevertheless, what? They are subject to the laws of Erachin. Ela Amar Abaye, it's just Abai says I need it for a different reason. Since the pasuk says since it says by Pidyon Ben, the lashon of Erkicha, so we'll say there's a juxtaposition therefore between what? The halachos of Erchin and Pidyon Ben. So I might have thought called the Isei Pidyon Ben, Isei Be'erchin. I might have thought whoever is subject to the halachos of Pidyon Ben is subject to Erchin. V'hani kohanim hoyol v'lesnu Pidyon Ben, lesnu be'erchin. Kohanim are both have no shaykhis to what? No shaykhis to Pidyon Ben. Therefore, I would have thought no shaykhis to Erchin either. Kamashon, the Mishnah tells me, Hakol ma'arichim kohanim levim Yisraelim. Amrli Rava said Elamiata. So Rava says like this. Essentially, what you're telling me is that wherever we see a mention of Erchin juxtaposed with another mitzvah, if you're not chayiv in that mitzvah, you're not chayiv in Erchin. Or if you're not chayiv in Erchin, you're not chayiv in that mitzvah. Amrli Rava, Elamiata Gabi Ayel Asham. So I say El Asham, remember again, is the carbon that is brought if someone deposits something with you and you claim you do not have it and you swear to that effect and it turns out that you are lying, you bring this El Asham, Dichsiv, Ve'es Ashamo Yavi LaHashem, Ayol Tomim, Minatzon Be'erkicha. So we'll say the Torah mentions Lashon of Erech over here as well. Hachanami, Dechol Isei Be'erchin, Isei Be'el LaHashem. So again, are you going to say that what? Are you going to say that whoever is subject to the halachos of Erchin, ultimately again is going to be subject to the halachos of Ela Asham? To which the Gemara says, Tumtum v'androgynous the lesnu be'erchin, lesnu be'el Asham. If that's the case, then Tumtum and androgynous, who are not subject to the halachos of Erchin, should also not be subject to the halachos of El Asham. Ela Amarava v'Itim Ravashi. It's tirich sachadayit chamina holuksiv ve'midul ifnei hakohen. But say there's a different issue by Kohanim. See, the reason ultimately I might have thought that a Kohen is not subject to the halachos of Erchin is why? Because also when it comes to Erchin, the first step in Erchin is not the first step. I take that back. Ve'midul ifnei hakohen. I both say Torah speaks it over here as follows: if somebody makes an Erchin vow, but they're poor. So the Torah says, "Ve'im machu me'erkicha ve'mido lifnei hakohen ve'herich osa hakohen al pi asher tasig yado aned." I know there yarichenu hakohen. But say if you make an erech vow and you're too poor to execute, you're too poor to pay, they bring you before the kohen, and what essentially happens? the Kohen evaluates how, based on your financial circumstances, right? You bring your tax returns from the last 2 years, right? The Kohen will decide how the tuition committee, right? The Kohen will decide ultimately again how much you have, how much you are capable of paying. So watch this. The middle lifnei Kohen, v'lo Kohen lifnei Kohen. So I might have thought that since there's a concept of being brought before the Kohen, it is only non-Kohanim who are brought before the Kohen, but not the Kohen who comes before the Kohen. Kamash Mulan ne'erachin. Therefore, again, Kamash Mulan, no. Kamash Mulan teaches me, Hakol ma'arichin, afilo Kohanim levim Yisraelim. Even a Kohen is subject to an erech vow. And I will say, yes, it could very well be that you could have a situation of a Kohen who makes an erech vow, is too poor to pay for that value. He will then be himself brought before the Kohen, ultimately for valuation. Good. Ne'erachin last year. So we'll say, what about when it says Hakol ne'erachin? Everybody could be the subject of an erech vow. Lasuye menuval umukashrin. That comes to include who? Even a menuval mukashrin. We'll say, remember, menuval means someone who's just physically repulsive. Mukashrin is someone who's covered with boils, also physically repulsive. So the Gemara says, Minhani Mili, from where do I know this? The Tan Rabbanan, Be'erkicha lahavi erech sasum. So we'll say, we're going to now read a very long brisa and go ahead and explain that brisa afterwards. So Be'erkicha, when the pasuk says, in your erech, lahavi erech sasum, that comes to include even a closed erech. So we'll say, we're going to see erech sasum means like this. In general, when we're making an erechin vow, you don't just say, I obligate myself in an erech vow. An erech vow always has what? Always has what? Has a modifier. In other words, whose value? Because remember again, erech vows, we're supposed to say everybody has, we saw this in Parshas Bichul Kosai, everyone has their own value. So generally, if you were making an erech vow, you would say, erki alai, right? My value is upon myself. Erko shel ploni alai. I'm pledging the value of Ruvain. I'm pledging the value of a man above the age of 60. So that's how you make an erech vow. Erech sasna, I will say, means a case of where a person just says, I hereby make an erech vow. An erech vow. So we're going to see what we do with that vow. So we'll say, but the Gemara says, nevertheless, there is a concept that vow does work. That's called an erech sasum. It works. Davar achar, be'erkicha, erech kulo hu nosein, v'lo erech evarim. Furthermore, again, when the pasuk says be'erkicha, erkicha means that when you make an erech vow, that vow devolves upon you in totality, and there is no such thing as an erech vow of a limb. Or as if a person says, I hereby pledge the erech of my foot, right? The erech of Ruvain's foot. That does not work. That does not work. Rather, again, that becomes a complete erech vow. Yochol shani motza. After you might think that's what. But say, let's say I said I hereby pledge the erech of my head. Talmud lomar nefashos. There was the pasuk says nefashos. Look at Rashi. Talmud lomar nefashos. Benefesh talarachmana vimherech davashan neshama tzliyaba. No sin erech kulon. Now the good news is, if you make an erech vow regarding something that life is dependent upon, I hereby pledge the erech of my head. Right? So we'll say, so therefore, again, as we're going to see, that essentially is the equivalent of what? Making an erech of my body, right? Of myself. Tamalomar nefashos. Nefashos v'lo ames. Otzies ames v'lo otzies agos. So let's listen to this. So if our pasuk says nefashos. Now, interestingly enough, the only type of erech vow is an erech with living people. You cannot make an erech vow upon someone who is dead. So let's say Ruvain passes away. I can't say hereby pledge Ruvain's erech. Right? Ruvain's erech. Why not, Rabbi Say? Why not? He has no erech. We'll say, wow, what a musar. Right? You only have an erech when you're alive. Once you're dead, there is no longer an erech. Whatever erech you had, that's the erech you had when you're alive. Life gives us the ultimate value. The Gemara says, I might have thought that's what? Maybe it's only a dead person who doesn't have a value, but the goses does have a value. Talmud lomar vehemid veherich. We'll say this is pretty amazing. The pasuk says vehemid veherich. Ultimately, again, he will stand up and you will evaluate him. So what does that teach me? Whoever could stand up, ultimately, again, has an erech value. Whoever cannot stand up does not have an erech value. Therefore, the goses who cannot stand up, even though again the goses is alive for all purposes, ultimately again has no erech value. An incredible idea also, we'll say. Davar acher, nefashos. When the pasuk says nefashos, ainli ela echad sherich echad. So we'll say, I only know that one person could pledge the erech value of another person. Echad sherich mea minayin. We'll say, how do I know that one person could go ahead and pledge the erech value of 100 people? In other words, we'll say, I decide I want to take my Daf Yomi sponsorship to the next level. So I decide, right, I'm going to go ahead and pledge the Arachin of all the shir members. How do I know that I can do that? Talmud Lomar nefashos. Therefore, we'll say the pasuk says nefashos in plural, right? I could go ahead and pledge the erech value of even a group. Davar acher, another possibility is nefashos amud beis ainli ela ish sherich, right? Bein ish bein isha. I only know that a man has the ability to pledge the erech value of a man or a woman. Isha shericha ish. Isha shericha isha minayin. We'll say, how do you know that a woman has the ability to make an erech vow? Whether the subject of that erech vow is another woman or a man. Talmud lomar nefashos. We'll say, so nefashos becomes this catch-all phrase that pretty much a man or a woman can make an erech vow regarding the subject of erech vow. Could be an individual or a group. The only limitation is what? It has to be someone who's alive. And not just someone who's alive, but what? Someone who could stand of their own, right? Of their own strength, not a goses. Davar acher, another possibility is nefashos l'rabos menuval umukashchin. We'll say another possibility is that nefashos comes to teach me that even a menuval and a mukashchin could be subject ultimately again to erchin, could be the subject of an erchin vow. So the Gemara says, why would I have thought differently? Sheyachol neder berakecha. So let's say, because remember again, the pasuk uses the lashon of neder together with erech. Kol sheyeshno bedamim, yeshno be'erchin. Any person, Abosai, who has a value. Now, Abosai, remember again, we spoke about this when we opened the Masechta. There's a concept of damim and erchin. Erchin is an objective value that it has nothing to do with your skills, abilities, strength, and has everything to do with what? Gender and age. That's all it's based on. Damim means a value that has to do with the value you can get on the open slave market. So ultimately, I would have thought as follows. Now the mukashchin, right? The mukashchin, I would have thought like this, as follows. Kol sheyeshno bedamim yeshno be'erchin. Whatever is subject to damim, or whatever could fetch a value on the open market, is subject to erchin. V'chol she'eino bedamim eino be'erchin. And therefore, whatever is not subject ultimately again to damim is not subject to erchin. Then I will say, now in general, a mukashchin, right, and a manuval would not catch anything on the slave market. Why? Because just again, whatever the simple reason is, people would not buy slaves who are physically repulsive. That's just the reality of it. So I might have thought that because they don't have damim, therefore what? They're not subject to the halachos of erchin. Therefore they cannot be the Rabbi. What that means is, let's say Ruvain the mukashchin. Ruvain the mukashchin is a male between the ages of 20 and 60. What's the erchin of a male between the ages of 20 and 60? 50 shkalim. 50 shkalim, right? So I might have thought, again, that such a person is not subject to the halachos of erchin. Since halacha lemaisa, he's repulsive. Meaning he doesn't have damim, right? If you, just to illustrate this, if you were to go ahead and say, I hereby pledge the value, not the erchin, but the damim of Ruvain the Mocheshchin, that's his name, right? Ruvain the Mocheshchin. So we'll say, what's the status? What's the value of that neder? Zero. So I might have thought that again, since he has no damim, he has no erchin. Since the Torah speaks about damim and erchin in the same pasuk, kamash malon, no. Kamash on the pasuk says, so therefore the Talmud lomar nefashos. But we'll say, what does the nefashos come to teach me? Every single person has an erech value. Even if they have no damim value, they have an erech value. Beautiful. Vaya erkicha l'rabos tum. You understand, by the way, the incredible mussar in that. You see, erchin is a value that is created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. See, I will say sometimes people don't have value in the eyes of other people. It just happens for whatever the reason, because we have a different metric by which we determine people's value. Even those who have zero value in the eyes of their fellow man always have a value in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even if you don't have damim, you always have Arachin. So the Gemara goes weiter. Vaya erkicha l'rabos tumtum androgynous l'damim. Listen to this. So the pasuk says Vaya erkicha. So that comes to include even a tumtum and androgynous for damim. Then I will say, remember again, tumtum and androgynous do have. So remember again, tumtum and androgynous are going to say are the opposite case of the muka shchin. Right? The muka shchin has damim, doesn't have erchin. The tumtum and androgynous we're going to see have damim, but do not have erchin. Right? Sheyachol neder be'erkecha. Because I thought again. Remember, there's a juxtaposition between damim, neder, and erkecha. Kol sheyeshno be'erchin yeshno bedamim. V'chol she'ino be'erchin ino bedamim. I might have thought again, anyone who is subject to erchin is also subject to damim. But if you're not subject to erchin, you're not subject to damim. Ya erkecha hazocher. Zachar v'lo tumtum v'androgynous yachol. So we'll listen to this. Say for halacha l'maisa, by erchin, the Torah uses this lashon of what? Zachar and nekeva. So if you are a zachar and nekeva, you're subject to erchin. If we're not sure, you're not subject to erchin. Yachol lo yeh be'erech isha v'al yu be'erech isha. Same you would think that a tumtum and androgynous, maybe their erchin is not like a man, it's like a woman. Talmud lomar v'aya erkecha hazachar v'im nekeva hi zachar v'adai nekeva v'adais v'lo tumtum v'androgynous. So I'll say, interestingly enough, now even though we see a juxtaposition between neder, which is damim, and erchin, we see that relationship does not always hold true. So you can have examples. So even you can have examples of people who are subject to erchin, not subject to damim, and vice versa. So for example, the muka shchin, right? The muka shchin, and the repulsive individual who are not subject to damim are subject to erchin. Yet the tumtum and androgynous who are subject to damim are not subject to erchin. Amar. So we'll say the pasuk says, Be'erkicha. The Rabbos erech sasum. Suppose now we're going to go back and dissect the brisa. So the pasuk, so the Gemara told us before, Be'erkicha, right? The Rabbos erech sasum. So ultimately, again, that teaches me that even an erech sasum, we'll say an erech sasum ultimately means an undefined erchin vow. An undefined erchin vow. Literally means closed up. Where a person just says, I hereby undertake an erchin vow. No modifier, no qualifier, just an erchin vow. So the Gemara says, my erech sasum, what does that mean? Disanya Omer, erech sasum alai. Literally, a person says, erech alai, I hereby undertake an erech vow, and there's no qualifier attached to that. So what's the halacha Rabbi? So what do you do with such a vow? No sin kepacho shebe erchin. So we'll say, so on a tachlis level, so you're like, what do I give? Well, one thing is clear, which is what? One thing is clear. Oh, you're giving. You're giving, right? That's clear, right? You open your mouth to give to a Jewish institution, right? You did not qualify it. We'll figure out what you have to give. But one thing is clear, which is you're going to give. The kama, so we'll say, how much do you have to give? Pacho sheb erchin. So you're only on the hook for the lowest erchin amount. What's the lowest erchin amount? Shlosha shkalim. 3 shkalim. Ve'ema chamishim. So we'll say, as we're going to see, 3 shkalim is the lowest erchin amount. Why? Why do we say that if you didn't qualify your neder, you're on the hook for what? The highest amount. But remember again, the highest erchin unit ultimately again is a male between the ages of 20 and 60. That's the highest erchin unit. So say 50 shkalim, that's what I should be chayiv for. Tafasta merubalo tafasta, tafasta muat tafasta. So I say in general, again, we see this concept in Gemara, which is that again, when we're not sure what to put you on the hook for, we're going to go with the amount that is sure, that is solid. So again, remember, one thing is clear: whether you're chayiv 50 or whether you're chayiv 3, you're certainly what? You're certainly chayiv 3. You're certainly meaning ours. What it's saying over here is 3 is a definitive amount that everyone will agree that you're chayiv. 50. We're not sure. So therefore, let's just go with the amount that we're absolutely sure on, which will be the lowest amount. Tafasta meruba lo tafasta, tafasta mua tafasta. I ve'em a shekel. Well, if that's the case, there is a lower amount for erchin, right? The lower amount is a shekel. Where does a shekel come from? Dichsiv v'chol erkacha yeh b'shekel hakodesh. Then we'll say, now the truth is, this is actually very interesting. This pasuk is actually talking about then when valuating erchin are valuated in the form of currency that is the shekel, the holy shekel. That's not an actual valuation. That's a statement of which type of currency you use. To which the Gemara says, no. That pasuk is actually talking about over here, Hahu behesig yatu dichsiv. That's actually referring to, say, somebody who has extenuating circumstances. That's referring to the guy who made the erech vow. Then what? Figures out that he actually can't pay that vow. He doesn't have the means to pay that vow. We bring that guy before the Kohen and we evaluate his finances and figure out what he can pay. And when he pays, that payment ultimately again is made b'shekel HaKodesh. V'alakra lamali. So what does the pasuk come to teach me? So we'll say, so if that's the case, then what is v'chol erkachal yeh b'shekel HaKodesh? What does that actually teach me? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Baravua, Lomar she'eno nidon behesig yad. But we'll say what it teaches us is as follows: that he is not handled as someone who has impoverished circumstances. We'll say, so what this means is as follows. This is very interesting. If someone goes ahead and makes an erech vow, two cases, and he can't pay the amount of the vow, so what do? We bring him before the Kohen assesses his circumstances. The Kohen will figure out how much he has to pay. The minimum amount he's going to have to pay is what? Is a shekel. That's extenuating circumstances. If you make an unqualified erech vow, then what? The minimum amount you're going to have to pay is what? 3 shekalim. Why is that? Because halacha l'maisa, that is the smallest unit of erchin. So it's very interesting. So if you have financial hardship, we could even assess you at below the lowest erech vow. But if you make an unqualified erech vow, you're not going to be assessed like what? You're not going to be assessed as a financial hardship. You're going to be assessed as a regular vower. So because you're going to be assessed at a regular vower, your erech vow is locked in at 3 shkalim. My taima, kimefarish tami. We'll say, why is that? Because when you make an erech vow, we qualify or we articulate your vow even if you did not articulate it yourself. So if you make an unqualified erech vow, I hereby undertake an erech vow. So I'll say ultimately again, what does that teach me? How do we interpret that? We interpret that to mean I hereby take an erech vow of the lowest unit of erech, which is 3 shkalim. Ikadam, I'll say there's a reverse version of this. No, it's not true. When a person makes an unqualified erech vow, in fact, how do we interpret that vow? We interpret that as someone who had a financial hardship. And when someone had a financial hardship, what's the smallest unit he's going to have to pay? Smallest unit? 1 shekel. So the Gemara says, Pshita, what's obvious? I might have thought again that when he says, ultimately I hereby undertake upon myself an erech vow and doesn't qualify it, that we would define it as the smallest unit of erech, which is 3 shkalim, not 1 shekel. Kamash Malon, not. Kamash Malon said that we define him as a hardship. So we'll say, Saloch Lamaisa, the Rambam Paskins ultimately like the first approach, which is that if a person makes an unspecified erech vow, we ultimately assess him at 3 shkalim, which is the smallest unit of erchin, and we do not automatically assess him as a financial hardship at 1 shekel. Davar acher, be'erkecha, erech kulo hu nosin, ve'ino nosin erech d'mei varim. So let's remember again. So the next part of the brisa says, when making an erech vow, we only go ahead and assess him as a full erech, but one cannot go ahead and give the erech value of limbs. So ultimately, again, I'll say about when he articulated the neder, he just said erech stam, karibei erech be'erkecha. Then also we understand ultimately again his statement of erchin in the context of normative erech vows. So I might have thought ultimately again I should exclude something, a limb of the body that life is dependent on. Talmud lomar nefashos v'lo hames. Ultimately again, it means nefashos. We'll say ultimately again, you can only go ahead and make an erech vow for something that is alive and not for the dead. I va fixe, but we already use that pasuk for something else. Kari bei nefesh nefashos. Ultimately, we'll say I can make a drasha based on the fact that the pasuk could have just said nefesh, instead it says nefashos. Therefore, the extra nefashos is available over here for a drasha. Otzias hameis v'lo otzias hagoses. I will exclude the mace, but not the goses. Talmud lomar ve'emid ve'herich. There will say the pasuk says what? Ve'emid ve'herich. You have to stand up and you have Arachin, which teaches me what Rabbi say. Only one who could stand up is subject to the halachos of Arachin. A goseis who cannot stand up is not subject to Arachin. Hachanami, to which the Gemara says, Iachi meis nami tefukle v'hem v'herich. So again, I will say, if that's the case, then you can learn out the exclusion of a mace from Arachin from the same limud, hamid v'herich. Mace can't stand up either, just like a goseis. To which the Gemara says, Hachanami, you're right. Ve'ela nefesh nefashos lamali. So if that's the case, then why do I need the drush of nefesh nefashos, which we used to teach me that a mace is not subject to Arachin? I can learn out the fact that a mace is not subject to Arachin. How? Ve'emid ve'erich. You have to be able to stand up in order to be the subject of an Arachin vow. A mace obviously cannot. To which the Gemara says, you're right. We're going to use nefesh nefashos for a different drasha later on. Davar acher, another possibility for this discussion. Nefashos ini ela echad sheherich echad. Nefashos, from the lashon of nefashos, I only know that if one went ahead and made an erech vow referring to one, in other words, I made an erech vow for one person. I said, the erech of Reuven is upon me. Echad sherich mea minayin. How do I know that even if I went ahead and I took upon myself the erech value of 100 people, that such a vow is binding? Talmud lomar nefashos. Therefore, the Torah phrases it ultimately in what? In the plural. First wide line, davar acher, nefashos einli ela ish sheherich ben isha. Ish shehericha ish, v'ish shehericha isha minayin. I only know that a man can make an erech vow. How do I know that a woman can make an erech vow either about another woman or about another man? Talmud lomar. Talmud lomar nefashos. Therefore, the pasuk says nefashos, and nefashos teaches me that what? Anyone can make an erech vow regarding any other person. The only limitation is what? The subject of the erech vow has to what? Be able to stand up on their own. That comes to exclude both a goseis as well as a mace. So the Gemara says, davar acher. Another possibility is nefashos lahavi menuvel amukashchin. So maybe nefashos comes to teach me that a menuvel and mukashchin are included in the halachos of Arachin. 1 second, but you just use nefashos to teach me all of these previously stated halachos. To which the Gemara says, Hanach lo tzrich ikra. These other cases do not really need a pasuk. Why not? My timer, ki shakolhu. Because ultimately, you're going to say, listen to this, because ultimately I could learn out all of these other items. The Gemara says, v'yavo kulam. So the Gemara says, because at the end of the day, all of these other items could be learned out on their own, as we're going to see. Ki yitzrich kra. Ultimately, and when do I need the pasuk? L'menuvel amukashkin. So what's the thing? Gemara is not suggesting all of these other items. I could learn them out, right? From the shakal and tarya, I could learn them out. They're all obvious. Really, what I need the pasuk for is menuvel and mukashkin. Why? So the Gemara says, so we'll say, I need the pasuk from menuvel and mukashkin. Vaya erkicha the rabos tumtum va'adrogenis ledamim. So I'll say ultimately again, Vaya erkicha comes to teach me that tumtum and androgynous, although they don't have an erchin value, will have a damim value. So lama likra lo yehe ella demei dikla. So we'll say, of course, tumtum and androgynous have a damim value. Right? After all, why should the tumtum and androgynous be any worse than a palm tree? And we'll say, what happens if you vow the value of a palm tree? What's the halacha? You're chayfet. In other words, we'll say, if inanimate objects have value, then of course tumtum and androgynous have value. To which the Gemara says, ilu amar demei dikla milo yoiv. Person were to say, I hereby take upon myself the value of the palm tree, shouldn't be chayiv. Amarava lomar shenidun bichvodo. So we'll say, actually, we'll stop over with Amarava. Rava is going to introduce a different concept, ultimately, again, of what we call nidun bichvodo. Ultimately, again, the ability to be evaluated based on one part of the body or the entirety. Miras Hashem will pick up over here tomorrow.